And I'm going to go ahead and give this, I don't want a background color on the form in this particular case. Actually, I could give it a real light gray background. So now you'll see that the form has a light gray background. I'm going to give it a border of 1. That's a thickness of 1. Give the border the same color as the form name. I'm not going to change the form text either in the text color or the input text or the input background color. Actually, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to go with a real light blue. Let's come down here, do a color picker, and do a real light blue. And so now the inside of the form fields, as you can see, is a light blue. Submit button name color. I'm going to make the submit button name white. So now you'll see that it's basically disappeared. But I'm making it white because I'm going to make the background color a dark blue to match the title. Now you can see that. Now notice how the border is exactly on the edges of the words. We need to put some padding there, which we'll do next. So if I want to have maybe I put a little borders around my fields, if I go ahead and paste that in, you'll see what this means. So the individual fields now have borders around them. In this color combination, and this is a little bit garish, but what I'm really trying to do is just show you how many different control points that you have. Now let's go to space styling, and we're just going to go ahead and go to padding for the bottom, left, and right sides. I'm going to go ahead and set the padding to 5 at each of these. There's an asterisk there I mistyped. So we'll set the padding, and you'll notice how we now have some space around. I'm also going to set the border radius. Notice how the corners of the border are square. I'm going to go ahead and set a border radius of 5, and you'll notice that that puts a little bit of a soft rounding on the corners. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead to font styling, and I'm going to select my font form name weight. Okay, so I'm going to go to bolder, save that, and you'll notice that the form name became bolder. Now I could play around with form name background colors, and I could do a variety of things that I'm not going to really worry about doing. I also could upload images. I'm just going to say, why don't you play around with that? That's a lot of fun. And then you have settings. Now forms have different heights, and when you paste a form on your web page, you're going to need to play around just a little bit with the form height, the frame height, to make sure that it looks right on your page. So I have a frame width of 500 by default and a frame height of 500, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this looks to me like it's about 700 pixels tall. Now you'll get a feel for this after you've played around with it a little bit. But at this point now I have done all my basic settings. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Edit, and you'll see here's my form, and I'm going to copy this form code. Just go ahead and copy it. And then I'm going to come over to the page where I want to place it, and I'm going to go ahead and place it where the form was that I was playing around with just a few minutes ago, the How Can We Help You form, the Contact Us form. So now we'll go over to the page where the form, the previous form, Contact Us form, was, and now we've replaced it with this new form that we've created called My First Form. And here it is. There's my first form placed on the page. Now, if you don't happen to give enough height to the form, you're going to see a vertical scroll bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the form. I'm going to change the setting. I'm going to go back to the default of 500 because I know that's going to be too small. Now I've changed the frame height to 500. We're going to go look at the form, and we're going to see what that's done. And so now you're going to see that inside the form there's a scroll bar that you have to scroll up and down. And the reason you have to scroll up and down is because we did not make the height of the frame in which the form is fitting tall enough. So because it's not tall enough for the entire form, you have to scroll up and down. Generally, you don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and make it 600. We're going to inch it up just a little bit, make it 600, come back over here, and we'll update the page, and we'll see that we still have a scroll bar, but you don't have to scroll as much, just a little bit, to get to the bottom of the form. So obviously we're getting closer, so I'm going to go ahead and put it back to 700, which was my first guess, and apparently was pretty much right on target. And now we update the form, and you'll see that the form actually fits on the page very nicely. And you can see the entire form without having to scroll an internal scroll bar. Now, you can also notice how much space we have here between these fields. We actually can control that space by going back over to space styling, and we come down, it says margin bottom. So I'm going to put in a margin bottom of 1, and watch what happens over here. Notice how it tightens this up. So if I now come over and look at the form, it has tightened that form up by quite a bit. So you have, like, again, quite a few controls on the form. And so since we've tightened it up so much, if you wanted to do that, we could probably come back in, play with our settings, maybe make this 600 and get a little bit less vertical space and still have the form fit without a scroll bar. So let's see if that will do it. And so with a 600, yes, it does. So it works quite well. So I just wanted to show you that you have a tremendous number of variables that you can control. Basic data fields, color styling, space styling, font styling, name styling, images, settings, and triggers. We're going to do a separate video on triggers and some of the other finer points on creating forms. But that'll take care of your initial custom form creation tutorial. Thanks.